all the government time of Bismarck, we had no war. Germany was not involved in any war. Just to talk about a World War III, I mean, to imagine to talk about a World War III, this one we are talking about a nuclear war. And when we are really talking about a nuclear war, we are talking about survival of the blue planet of maybe 25 minutes. Or saying we have to stop that killing everywhere in this second. And let us sit together and find out what is your interest, and to find out to make a balanced agreement. That's the only way.
Okay, so we are here today once again with the Honorary President of the Prussian Society. Thank you once more for agreeing to do this interview. Really appreciate it. So I want to ask you about, just 2 days ago, Ukraine's ex-military general mentioned that World War III has officially begun. In addition, we have seen Nordic governments distribute guides and online advice on how to prepare and cope in the case of war breaking out. From what you have seen and observed, is the world in danger of a huge world event in the form of World War III breaking out at any moment?
Well, it's a very wonderful and great question, which is, of course, touching and affecting the rest of the world, especially the Western world. And we have to take in advance, and we have to take it as granted that we have in America now a new president-elect.
Yes.
And his idea is to finish the war at once, like he has done it in Syria together with Russia. And I believe he will be the game changer, not the rockets and the missiles we're sending to them, because the few tanks we have sent finish the few missiles. So we always saying and talking and dreaming about that we're helping the Ukraine, but we are not doing it. When you are in danger and ask me for a favor to help you, then you expect that I come in person.
Yes.
And not to tell you I will organize a summit to give you some help. So that is the double standard, triple standard of the Western world. And therefore the Western world is now in a very, very narrow corner, in a very real edge. Mm-hmm. And it's noise from the new media, press media, from the rest, but it's not making anything. Because the West has to agree and to accept that they organized this terrible war in Ukraine. It was organized in the West. When you see, for example, the very most worldwide important and worldwide well-known, wonderful American gentleman, Jeffrey Sachs, he will tell you that it was done and organized by United States and by Britain. Yeah. Because it's not going on human rights, not for human beings. It's because of the plutonium in Ukraine.
Interesting.
And that is bringing Germany. I mean, everybody is now shouting about our chancellor because it's politics, because it's coalition with green and yellow. But one thing he did wonderful, he did not allow to send any weapon to Ukraine. And that is politics, because it's not meaning nothing except that only on the Ukrainian side dying every day 2,000 people. And on the other side, we have in the moment in Middle East as well a very mighty and dangerous war. Yeah. But as long as we are looking only to Ukraine, again, double, triple standards, the value of our judgment to Ukraine is totally different to that what is happening in Israel, Lebanon, and Gaza Strip. Mm-hmm. And we have to learn and accept that we can only help for peace and freedom, like it always Alexander from Bismarck is saying, if we can talk to people. I cannot say the war is going as long as we find somebody except Mr. Putin. It's not that Mr. Putin is the president of Russia. And we have a president-elect in the United States. I mean, we are talking about democracy every day, 24 hours, and say how important we have value, we have unity of value, partnership. But he was elected by totally 50 to 55 to 58%. Yes. So we cannot say he's a bad guy. He's a president-elect.
Yes.
And that we have to accept. And when he's doing a different policy than Mr. Biden, then we have to accept it as well. We cannot condemn him only because maybe he's not to our not really very wonderful idea how to deal with problems. And therefore, it's a mighty noise. It's a dangerous noise, all these threat rings. But the main threats are coming from the West, not from the East.
Yeah.
Because Mr. Putin, State President Putin, is always only answering to our nonsense.
Yes. Okay. You've touched upon this, but this is a question I wrote down. What impact does the re-election of President-elect Donald Trump have on the situation we are seeing between Russia and the NATO nations?
I mean, I've discussed it in the last few days, of course, with a wonderful Russian ambassador in Berlin, and with his press attaché, with many other friends from the Russian embassy, from my friends in Russia. They see it in a bit different way. But from my point of view, he will change almost anything in our Western world, because Mr. Trump was a gentleman, was a president who organized together with State President Putin a peace and ceasefire in Syria.
Yeah.
He was the only one who went to North Korea.
Yes.
Nobody did that before. And that is politics.
Yeah.
Whether we have tiny problems or economic tension with China and Russia. But in principle, the first and most, look, he went out of Afghanistan.
Yeah.
The so-called biggest army in the world just ran away. So we made 20 years war in Afghanistan to do what? Human rights, children. We are talking still of Afghanistan, but what is happening in Beirut, in Lebanon, in Gaza, with 50 or 60,000 dead, injured people. And as long as we do that with triple and so many different standards, we are not accountable for the rest of the world.
Okay. What does Germany know about a risk of World War III? Because look, we're on German soil, and just because if this is going out to people outside of Germany as well, what does Germany know about the risk of World War III happening?
Wonderful question.
Yeah.
I mean, we are talking about, it's crazy that we're even talking about a World War III.
Yeah.
Because we have so many historians, we have so many big people from the Second World War, First World War. Everybody is saying every war which has ended with millions of deaths, the next war will have much more damages for all of us, for the rest of the world. And just to talk about a World War III, to imagine to talk about a World War III is not a war. It's not a war between others, between all and everybody, with artillery and tanks. This one we are talking about a nuclear war. And when we are really talking about a nuclear war, we are talking about survival of the blue planet of maybe 25 minutes.
Wow.
It's crazy.
25 minutes.
Everybody has a 100 times overkill.
Yeah.
And Russia is the only country in the world who has the most nuclear weapons. Pakistan, North Korea. So if they all push the same time the red bottom, don't ask, we have no more chance to ask me the same question again.
Yeah.
For me, it's crazy, lunatic to even name it, to even discuss it, to even mention it, that we are talking about World War III. Because when we finish the question and the answer, we will not realize what happened, because nobody will see it.
Are sanctions against Russia backfiring on Germany?
Do you see my hand?
Yeah.
I straighten you,
Yeah.
and that's what is happening.
Yes.
Russia is in wonderful shape, and the only nation or the only state in Europe, Germany, is the lowest, the last nation at all. Because we are paying every day or every month 500, 600, 800 million through Europe to Ukraine to do what? To help, to give them chance, give them power, to give them electricity? No. We were keeping and extending this war in Ukraine forward to defend Europe. We have said that at the beginning of Afghanistan, that we are defending our democracy even at the Hindukush. What did we do? Nothing. We were running away. So we have to, whatever we do, we have to make, like Alexander von Bismarck said it, like Gerhard Schröder said it, many Kuyat said it. We have to do all reasonable at once to make a ceasefire.
Yes.
And then we can organize a meeting, a summit, or whatever, to talk about the conditions.
Yes. Yeah.
But not sending them rockets, not sending them missiles, it will not change everything, because it was United States and Britain and Europe who forced Russia. It was not Mr. Putin, it was a government in Russia who said, we have discussed no more extension of NATO to the east.
Yeah.
And between 2014 and 22, we had already 40,000 deaths and killed people in Ukraine, killed by themselves. Who is talking about? Nobody.
No one. Yeah. If you could stand before the German parliament today, what would you urge them to do differently in the face of rising global tensions?
I would say the same like Alexander von Bismarck, like Otto von Bismarck. Talk, sit together and talk.
Okay.
Change our interests, put everybody your interests on a table, sit together like Otto von Bismarck, our Chancellor, founding Chancellor of Germany. He made conferences in Berlin, said, what is your interest? Let's try to find a combination, let's try to find an agreement, but talk about it. And that is the only thing that we have many politicians, by the way, in Germany, especially from AfD, are saying we have to stop that killing everywhere in this second, and let us sit together and find out what is your interest, and to find out to make a balanced agreement. That's the only way.
It's interesting because this means that they're not even sitting down together.
No,
even have a
they
discussion.
even refuse it.
Yeah.
They refuse it. Even our government is refusing to talk to Russia, to talk to Mr. Putin.
Yeah.
But to whom do you like to talk?
Yeah. You mentioned Otto von Bismarck, but I want to ask you, perhaps this would be your answer, but or one of your answers. So can you provide me with an example of a historical figure that the German nation is missing out on today from a political standpoint, and why the world is missing out on such a personality, and how the world could do with such an influential figure?
I was talking about our founding Chancellor, Duke Otto von Bismarck. He made something very wonderful.
Yeah.
He made contracts with all the nations surrounding Germany, peace contracts, ceasefire contracts. And therefore we had all the government time of Bismarck, we had no war.
Okay.
Germany was not involved in any war, because he made with Russia, with Austria, with Italy, with all the nations around him, double contracts, mutual agreements. Whatever you like, okay, but we do not have any war in between. And that we have to do again with the United Nations, with the Security Council of the United Nations, with anything. But we have to use our instruments we have.
So Otto von Bismarck would go and speak with these nations?
Sure.
And
no, he would invite them.
Yeah.
I do not know whether it's possible today. Him or United Europe or United Nations organize, like they do it now for the climate change, make a big summit and say, okay, what is your interest? Let us sit together and try to find out a way that we have no war.
Yeah.
The maximum is always find out any answer, any idea, any solution, which is meaning we do not have any war killing people, innocent people, poor people. I mean, the rich people, they will never die. The rich people will say, you have to send your son, but they never send their own children. Like Ursula von der Leyen, she was asked, yes, it's very important that we send our people to war.
Yeah.
And she was asked, what do we do with your own children? She said, no. I mean, there you can see that we have a very crazy situation to talk about war. And we do not have an army like we had 40, 50 years ago. We have nothing.
Yeah.
So with nothing in your hand, you cannot threaten anybody.
Yeah. Okay. And a final question. Now, you did mention, obviously, with nuclear weapons, that it could be over before we even understand what's taking place. But prior to World War I, the map of the world was significantly different. There were 4 empires at that time in the form of the German, Austro-Hungarian, the Russian, and the Ottoman Empire. After World War I, many nations were formed as they broke out from these empires. This resulted in the form of governance changing from that of monarchy to democratically elected governments. In case of World War III, do you see the map of the world changing again and there ever being a world where the form of governance is reversed back to what it was prior to World War I?
No, we have no.
Yeah.
Either we have a different situation or we do not have any. Either it's the same situation, whether you call it only where European countries or Russia countries. But if you see the different interests, we were talking about your question only about Europe and Russia and America. What of China and India? What of Pakistan?
Yes.
What of North Korea?
Yes.
As long as we exclude almost 50% of the total global population, as long as we do not invite BRICS countries to all this discussion, then we are again starting to organize that we lose more and more and more.
Yes. Okay. Okay, thank you so much for that.